first met Landwehr sometime in the 90s at a show I was playing in Munich, Germany. We spoke after the gig for a while and then kind of went our separate ways. It must have been a few years later that he came to the UK. I was working on a band's production in my studio in Surrey, and he brought Sabina over to do a guest performance on their album. And I guess we stayed in contact ever since then. It would have been probably 2005 that he contacted me again and asked me to get involved with production for an EDENBRIDGE album. And we haven't really looked back ever since then. I think when you're working on production, there are just some relationships that sort of work and bring out the best for a band, and I've always found that working together with EDENBRIDGE has been something that is more than the sum of the parts that either myself or Landwehr would bring to the album. So we've been making albums ever since. My approach to their production is probably not different from my point of view than any other band. What I like to do, instead of bringing my imprint and forcing it on the band, I try to look at what the band are doing and use my abilities and ideas to enhance that. So keeping in mind what they want and keeping their own identity, instead of making each band sort of have my blueprint and sound the same. On all previous EDENBRIDGE albums, our way of working is normally the same. We get to the point where we're going to do re-ambing guitars and the mix. Landwehr travels across from Austria, and I pick him up from the airport and we work together in the studio. Being as this album was done during the pandemic, restrictions didn't allow that, and we just sort of gave up pretty quickly the idea of doing the usual production. So we found some software called Audio Movers, which allows him to hear exactly what I'm doing over the internet in Austria. So as long as he has a computer with some speakers where he can channel the sound, as I do things, even if I'm just listening to an individual part like a guitar solo or something, he hears exactly what I'm doing and the effects I'm putting on, exactly what comes out of my Pro Tools session. So we found that to be a really useful way of working. The only downside was the fact that we were also using WhatsApp to communicate, to see each other and speak. If I happened to turn that off or crash, the volume would double in Austria, and suddenly the speakers would sort of come out twice the volume. But on the whole, it worked really well, and I think if we have to, we can do it again. I mean, we'll fine-tune that process, and the results were just as good as usual, possibly even better. So I'm more than happy with it.
Der Mix hat diesmal schon länger gedauert, weil wenn du natürlich nicht vor Ort bist, bringt das immer einige Schwierigkeiten mit sich. Also im Sinn von, dass man natürlich gewisse Dinge anders wahrnimmt, anders hört über die verschiedenen Boxen. Es ist die Kommunikation natürlich nicht so direkt, wie wenn man, sage ich mal, direkt vor Ort ist und mit dem Mixing Engineer direkt zusammenarbeitet. Aber ich denke, letztendlich hat es der Produktion keinen Abbruch getan, ganz im Gegenteil. Ich glaube, wir haben einfach seit langer Zeit die gleichen Visionen. Das heißt, dass wir einfach nie versuchen stehen zu bleiben, sondern immer versuchen, uns einen Schritt nach vorne zu arbeiten. Was jetzt die Produktion betrifft, immer wieder neue Ideen einfließen lassen. Oft ist es so, dass ich irgendwas höre und ich sage Karl, ich höre das und er kann das einfach sofort umsetzen, oder er hat dann einfach geniale Ideen, die dann der Produktion auch noch mehr an Sprung bringen. Ja.
Der Mix ist in meinen Augen diesmal klarer als auf den anderen Alben und ist trotzdem sehr wuchtig.
Although the production process for Shangri-La was slightly different, I think our aim has always been the same. I mean, from Landwehr's end is to increase the quality of songwriting if he can, and my end is to increase production and maybe ideas for new sort of production techniques and so on. There are all sorts of things we can do to slightly improve from last time. So I think we're looking, since we started working together, at a gradual increase in quality each time, just always trying to find something to make the new album slightly better than the last one. One thing that's different on this new album is that we decided to do the mastering ourselves, or I decided to do the mastering here, and they agreed to it. It's not the fact that anybody particularly did a bad job in the past, it's just it's always been a frustration for me on many albums I've made where we send it off for mastering somewhere else. It's the point where I get with the band to the point where we think the album is, you know, pretty much as perfect as it can be, and then you send it to somebody else, and of course if you're paying someone quite a bit of money to do a job to master it, they feel the need to change something, and that's sort of counterintuitive for me. So we decided that we'd work on the mastering ourselves and complete the album to the point where we were happy with it instead.